In 2007, a large area of California was ravaged by wildfires. And nearly 1 million people in that year were evacuated from their homes. Now, every time I think about wildfires in California, or I think about wildfires that struck in places like Tennessee even a few years ago, I ponder how so many people in those moments are having to reconcile and to think about their relationship with their material possessions. That so many people in the midst of wildfires in this particular year and others had very little notice of the fire coming in the direction. So one family in 2007 was awakened in the middle of the night by their daughter. In time to look out their back window and see the fire leap over the interstate and begin a rapid climb up into their home. They and tens of thousands of others had minutes to grab everything that they could and flee from their home. So during that particular year, 2007, Time magazine had an online question, and they posed this question. And they said, what did you save from the fire? Of people staying at one emergency shelter in San Diego. And so some of the responses included this. People said, Andrew saved his pillow. Survey saved her family book pictures and books. Angel saved the saxophone she had been learning to play. Karen saved her 2 cats and important documents. Michelle saved her Bible, purse, shoes, diploma, and cell phone. So now let me ask us this question. What would you save? If a wildfire headed towards your home and you had 10 minutes to grab what you can and flee, what would you take? Honestly. I think natural disasters such as wildfires and floods and hurricanes and tornadoes remind us that everything in our world is temporary. If our stuff is taken away from us, from maybe a burglar, a bankruptcy, thieves, blown away by a tornado, or burned in a fire, I wonder if we have to remember this, that material things are only temporary. When I'm gone one day, most of the stuff that I have will be outdated, worn out, or simply no value. My stuff may either be placed at a yard sale and be bought for like a penny, or thrown in the trash. But as I think about this reality about our relationship with stuff and how our things are temporary, I'm reminded of Jesus' words. I'm struck by that. When Jesus said, one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Now, I believe these words, that our life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. And I believe these words because first Jesus said that. And so these are Jesus' words. But I think deep down intuitively, I believe these words, that our life does not consist in the abundance of stuff, of possessions. But here's the major problem, though. And the major problem that I've been saying for the last 2 weeks. Everywhere we turn, the world is telling us that this is not true. The world continually tells us that our life does consist in the abundance of possessions. And I was thinking about this. That this kind of message is drilled into us, forced into us as like young kids. Like I remember being a young kid, always wanting something. Right? So it could be like a new gadget or a toy or an object. It may have been something that my friend had that I found out about, or something that I watched on the television. But I remember as a kid always wanting. Right? The word in my mind I have is like I want, and I can picture myself, little Chris, like saying I want this, I want this, I want this. And I think part of that is, sadly, I think our children are continually being reared in a society that encourages us to believe that our life consists in the abundance of stuff. We've heard that we're to believe into the American dream, to work harder so that we can spend harder. We're encouraged to buy with credit. We're encouraged to buy things that always are on sale. And now I think we're told by our world that our life actually consists our value comes from abundance of things, of possessions. And that we're constantly being bombarded with messages such as this. If you had a little bit more, you'd be happier. If you had this thing that you currently do not have, you'd find more satisfaction in life. If you had a bigger house or a nicer car or more fashionable clothes, you'd be happy, at least happier than you are right now. In one way or another, I think we're bombarded with these type of messages that if you just had this thing, you would be happier. And I think while Jesus is telling us that our lives consist of more than money or things, I think our culture is shouting that it's just not true. So I think what happens is this. We have a wrestling match in our mind. We have this wrestling match in our mind, in our heart, about these things, right? So on one hand, we believe Jesus' words, right? Because it's Jesus. We're good Christians. We can't deny Jesus' words. So we believe these words, that our life does not consist in the abundance of stuff. That's on one hand. But at the same time, we devote a lot of time, a lot of talents, a lot of money and resources in the acquisition of more stuff. So here's what I think happens. We say that our lives do not consist in the abundance of our possessions, but we live as if they do. So we say it, because that's what Jesus told us to say. But we live as if they do. So often I think what happens with us, we have this like restless heart syndrome. Have you heard of like restless leg syndrome before, right? So think about that for our heart, right? Restless heart syndrome. And that we find that we're actually never satisfied with anything that we have. And the moment that we acquire something, we begin to really enjoy it for the moment while we're taking it out of the box. We're like a brand new iPhone, right? So I get a brand new iPhone, we pull it out of the box, and there's so much satisfaction. But then sometimes, maybe that day or the next day or the next week, I'm no longer satisfied with it, and I want something more, right? So in this case, I don't want an iPhone, I want an iPad, right? And if I don't want an iPad, I need 2 iPads, because I'm just never satisfied. Now here's the deal. I think there's actually a good level of discontentment that we have. I think there's a healthy level of discontentment that we have that I think God wants us to have. That I think God desired us or designed us to have discontentment for certain things. Maybe certain things so that we would really seek after Jesus. And that we could really look after God, who's the only one who can truly satisfy us. So I actually think that God wants us to be content with certain things and to not be content with others. And this is what I mean. There's a philosopher named James McIntosh who once said this. He said this: "It is right to be contented with what we have, but never with what we are." So in other words, it goes something like this. We should not be content. We should have discontentment with our moral character. That we should have discontentment with our spiritual life. That we should have discontentment with our pursuit of holiness. We should have discontentment with our ability to love. Why? Because I think these are areas that God wants us to improve on. And I think God wants us to focus our time and energy, because I think we are meant to yearn for more of God. To yearn to love God better, to cultivate a deeper prayer life, to love others more, and to grow in grace and character and wisdom each day. So I think we should have a level of discontentment there, because we want more of God, and we want more of Jesus. But here's the reality, church. We're often most content in our spiritual life. We're most content with where we are with God. Because, honestly, we're fine with it, right? We tend to be content with how well we love others. We tend to be content with our relationship with God. We tend to be content with how often we read the Bible or how often we pray. And generally, we're just fine with it. We're just content. And so, sadly, we're content with our spiritual life. But what are we discontented with? Where's our discontentment? It's our money and our homes and our televisions and our gadgets and our stuff. So we work hard to achieve those things that will make us happy. But sadly, as I thought about it, our discontentment just doesn't hang out with our stuff. That there's discontentment with our work, with our family, there's discontentment with our spouses, and there's discontentment with our church. And yet I hear Jesus' words, or God's words to us this morning, and it says these. Your way of life should be free from the love of money, and you should be content with what you have. After all, he has said, I will never leave you or abandon you. That your way of life should be free from the love of money, and you should be content with what you have. After all, he has said, I will never leave you nor abandon you. As people of God, as people who are in love with Jesus, as people who are on a journey of life with God and one another, I think we're instructed to be content with what we have. So imagine this being placed on a building, right? Or imagine this being the slogan of a store, right? Be content with what you have. Would that sell? Is that sexy? No. That's like the opposite of that entirely. So I think we live in a world that cultivates discontentment. And I think God is inviting us to live into a life that is absolutely much better. That God is inviting us into a life that is better and freer and more satisfying. A life of contentment. Because God will never leave us or abandon us. So the reality is this. Our stuff will mold. Our houses, stuff in it, will become old and outdated. But God will never leave us or abandon us. So here's the deal. I want to offer 4 keys for us to cultivate contentment in our life. 4 ways that I think we can live out a life of contentment with what we have. So the first one is this. First key. Remember that it could be worse. So John Ortberg, who's a pastor and an author, says that there are 4 words that we should say whenever we feel dissatisfied with something, or discontent with something, or with someone or something. And the 4 words are, it could be worse. So as we walk into our house today, as we drive in our car, as we talk with our spouse, as we play with our children, as we clock into our job, as we check the balance of our checking account, wonder if we should say to ourselves, it could be worse. It could be worse. It could always. And I think this is essentially the practice of looking on the bright side, or finding the silver lining. I think it's recognizing that what we may not like about a thing, what we may not like about a person, what we may not like about a situation, or a circumstance, or our job, or our marriage, or our family, whatever it is, that we can always find something good to focus on, if only we will choose to do so. Why? Because it could always be worse. That's the first one. It could always be worse. Number 2 is this. I wonder if we should ask ourselves, how long will this make me happy? I think so often we buy something, thinking it will make us happy, only to find out that, honestly, the happiness only lasts as long as we open up the box. And I think there's a slight moment of gratification, and it feels so good. You know that feeling, right? When you get something new like that, it's a good feeling, right? It's almost intoxicating, the feeling of getting something new. But the problem is that momentary feeling might not bring us satisfaction over the long term. So here's something else. Maybe before we buy something, we should try it out, right? So if it's a gadget, go to Best Buy and play with that thing for like 5 hours. And see if you like it or not, right? Or if you want to buy a car, go rent. Like if you want to buy a new car, go rent that car and drive it somewhere and see if you actually like it. Or if I know you have it, I want to come and just use that thing that I want and see if I actually need to buy it myself. I wonder if we should take on the whole trial periods more. Because here's the deal. If there's even an and even a glimmer of being bored with something during our trial period, we may not actually need it to make us happy over the long term. Because during the trial period, it's already discouraging us. It probably, if we buy it, won't work over the long term to make us happy. So I think the first one is we always have to think it could be worse. And then two, we have to ask ourselves, how long will this thing, whatever it is, make us happy? And the third one, I think, is the most important. I think we should develop a grateful heart. I think this is one of the most key things when we talk about contentment or happiness. That gratitude is essential if we should be content. So Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18 that we should give thanks in all circumstances. So I think a grateful heart, recognizing that all of life is a gift. I think contentment comes when we spend more time giving thanks for what we have than thinking about what we're missing, what's wrong, or we don't have in our life. So I think in any situation, we can either complain or we can be grateful. We can focus on the things we don't like, or we can search for things that we do like and find gratitude. That we can focus on disappointments, or we can give thanks for blessings. So a man once told me this story. He told me that one night he and his wife were having a major heated argument. He was so angry that he walked out the front door and headed down the street. He walked for about a half a mile before he calmed down. He began to pray as he walked, listing all of the things that his wife did wrong that frustrated and irritated him. And after a while, his prayer took a turn. And he began to thank God for the traits in his wife that had led to the frustration. So this is what he said. Thank you, God, that she is strong-willed, that she has a fiery personality, and that she calls me to be better than I am. He prayed. Before long, he began thanking God for the things that he found in his wife that he loved. So he began to say, thank you for her touch, her smile, her eyes, her kiss, her embrace, her beauty. So by the time that he ended his long walk and when he got back to the house, his heart had changed from anger to gratitude. He felt truly grateful for the precious gift that his wife was given to him by God. So imagine if we did something like this every time we think of someone or something that frustrates us. In those moments, because I've been there when we're frustrated, what do we always think about? The negative stuff, right? The stuff that led us to that moment of frustration. But I want to be able to teach our heart, to teach our mind to have a grateful heart instead. Here's the thing, our world doesn't teach us this. Our world does not teach us to be grateful. But I think we have to fight for this as Christians. To fight, to have a grateful heart all the time. Because I think to have a life of contentment always can be worse. We have to ask ourselves, how long does this actually make me happy? And I think we have to develop a grateful heart. And the last one is this. We have to ask ourselves, where does my soul find true satisfaction? The world answers this question by telling us that we find soul satisfaction in ease and luxury and comfort and money. The Bible, however, I think tells us a much different and more beautiful picture. That we can find satisfaction in God and God alone. So if we are currently finding satisfaction in our stuff, know that God is a God of grace and forgiveness. And we don't have to feel bad, but I think that God is wanting us to make a shift in our life to become not satisfied with our stuff, but to become more satisfied with God. I think our restless hearts that we often fill with stuff, maybe are meant for them to be filled with God. That our only real, true, lasting satisfaction in our life will only and can only ever be Jesus Christ. So I think we are, as Christians, are called to be content with what we have. To remember that God will never leave us or abandon us. So I think part of this difficult conversation around contentment is being okay with living more simply. To believe and embrace that less is more. Let me be a person of freedom this morning for you all. Let me be this person. More is not always better. Less is good. Less is okay. And honestly, I actually think less is better. We don't need more clutter in our lives because clutter just makes us be less happy people with just more stuff. So I think it's okay if we live simply. But part of this conversation also about simplicity deals with when we make purchases, if it's something a want or a need. Now I'll tell you, my mom, my adopted mom in high school and beyond, always asks me a haunting question that I still don't like, but it haunts me and it's good, right? It's a question, if I want to buy something, she always asks me, Chris, is that a want or a need? Now as much as that question is simple, as much as that question frustrated me as a high schooler who just wanted a lot of stuff and I just wanted to buy it, right? I'm grateful for that because I still hear her voice every time in my head. Is it a want or is it a need? I think if we want to live a life that is biblical and that's also like biblically content, if we want to live a life of contentment and enough, we have to ask this question more. Is this thing a want or a need? Want or a need? So if we want to be people that are no longer stressed out, like part of that 80%, if we no longer want to be the part of the 80% of people who worry about money every day, if we want to be people who no longer stress about finances and have financial freedom, if we want to honor God with our money and our stuff, I think we first must be people who seek to be content with what we already have. Because the reality is, we have enough. We have enough. God has given us enough already. We just haven't made the declaration that we have enough. God knows we have enough, but we've not told ourselves that we have enough, but we do. For God said, our way of life should be free from the love of money, and you should be content with what you have. After all, he has said, I will never leave you or abandon you. So 2 weeks ago, at the end of my sermon, I had us pray a contentment prayer. And I want to have us say it again this morning. And so I'm going to read this contentment prayer. And if you are able and are wanting to, I invite you to make this your prayer today as well. So I'm going to read it first. Lord, help me to be grateful for what I have. To remember that I don't need most of what I want. And that joy is found in simplicity and generosity. Help me to be content with you as the Lord of my life. Amen. So if you want to, I'll invite you to pray this with me. Lord, help me to be grateful for what I have. To remember that I don't need most of what I want. And that joy is found in simplicity and generosity. Help me to be content with what you as the Lord of my life. I wonder if we pray this every day, how it would change our lives. It would change our relationship with Jesus. And I think it certainly would change our relationship with our stuff. So in our closing song today, I think it's appropriate to sing the song, It Is Well With My Soul. Because it is well with our soul. Because God has given us enough. And God has not abandoned or forsaken us. So I invite us to now stand and sing, It Is Well With My Soul, hymn number 370.